Okay, Senator Wicker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's kind of ironic that the Taliban and other terrorist groups ran Russia out of Afghanistan, and now it seems that the Taliban and Russia are somewhat cozy. Let me ask you, Mr. Jocelyn, what effect this debacle and the takeover of Afghanistan by the Taliban, what effect that is likely to have on the former Soviet republics in the neighborhood, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and particularly Kazakhstan? Are they more surrounded now by Russia and vulnerable to Mr. Putin?
Well, there's two parts to that. There's the Putin angle, and then there's the Taliban angle. When it comes to the Taliban threat to the stands, there's a very clear danger to some of them, including Tajikistan. When you look at what the Taliban did, when we talk about how they cut off the north and they won the north, the way they did that was with al-Qaeda-affiliated Tajik groups, including Ansarullah, which is actually what took over about much of the territory this year and actually started controlling the border crossing with Tajikistan. So the Tajiks, you can see that Tajikistan is very concerned about all this right now when it comes to what's coming out of Afghanistan. They're harboring, they brought in the so-called resistance leaders that were in the Panjshir Valley. I've seen recent reports that they've relocated to Tajikistan. When it comes to Russia and all this, what I would say that's very curious is we were watching how Moscow was bringing delegations of the Taliban to Moscow to stand them up without the Afghan government being present, and they did this over and over again. They had to know that this was diplomatically contributing to the undermining the government of Afghanistan and Kabul. And it was so embarrassing for the Taliban at one point, they actually issued a statement saying, no, we know we beat them, the Mujahideen beat them in the first time around as the Soviets, but this is different. They basically had to explain it away for their own audience because it was that uncomfortable. But no, to me, it's not puzzling, but you can see that Moscow actually shifted its behavior here.
If you were the leadership of Kazakhstan, wanting to remain free from Russian domination as they've been now for some 20 years, what would your apprehension be?
I'd be concerned, obviously, that Russia is always going to look out for Russian interests first. That's what Moscow is going to look out for, and obviously not theirs. And I see a willingness from Moscow to do business with even jihadis in different areas. So
do they need to look to their south to be worried about Russia now?
Absolutely.
Okay, let me shift to one other thing. Did in the way we avoided going out into Kabul to rescue our friends, and in the way we signaled that we wanted to avoid casualties at any cost, does that send a signal? Haven't we over time resisted sending the signal to our enemies that we were averse to risking any casualties? And has the perception of our U.S. military changed because of what happened in Kabul?
I think that was absolutely the calculation behind withdrawal. I think the president decided, and I think President Trump had decided too, that they didn't want to risk any more casualties on the American side in Afghanistan any longer. What I can say about that is that since 2014, when you hear people say that the Afghans didn't fight for their country, I have to disagree with that. About 60 to 70,000 Afghans died under U.S. military leadership fighting for their country on the ground. They took on a lot of casualties. But since 2014, the Americans took on a very small number of casualties, including even up to the Doha Agreement last year. You can see the number of casualties had decreased. Now, that's not explaining them away. You know, I think about the people who are lost there all the time. All I'm saying is we've absolutely signaled to the world that we are risk-averse in that regard.
Well, what is true also is that the Afghan military was trained almost entirely to fight with the close air support and the ground support of the United States military. Is that not correct? That's
absolutely correct. You heard that even on Tuesday, where there was some mirror imaging, which was part of the problem with the effort. The air support, the logistical support in that regard. If you're an Afghan fighting alongside the U.S. military and get logistical air support, and then all of a sudden one day it's gone, right? That's a big deal. That's a huge deal. You know, the Taliban was used to fighting without air support all these years.
And I could tell you the then ambassador from Afghanistan to the United States called to me, a member of this committee, a couple of days before the fall and said, would you please implored the administration to return to close air support, and that did not happen. Does that is that? Had you heard that?
Oh, we were documenting it in real time. You could see that there were only, in the last several months, there were only sporadic airstrikes by the Americans to come to the defense of the Afghans, and they were sporadic. They weren't anything that was going to actually keep them afloat. And part of the reason why they crumbled was they were used to fighting with close air support, and now they no longer had it.
Thank you, sir.
Senator King.